Miikka Murinen is the latest player to receive a Tar Heels scholarship offer, and I gotta be honest, I think this dude was constructed in a Hubert Davis lab.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Friday, July 26, 2024. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade, and I want to thank you for joining us at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Really appreciate you letting us be your first listen or first watch of the day. Special shout out goes out to all the everydayers out there and all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord community. So glad that every one of you is here. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. In the dog days of summer, the sports stopped sportsing like we wanted to, although tonight's the opening ceremonies. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Hey, want to quickly remind you as we close out the week, I'm actually going to be out of town on vacation next week. But I've got a whole week's worth of shows lined up for you. I'm going to miss the first days of the week after that too. Still, a whole bunch of shows, so you're not going to miss a single second of Locked On Tar Heels. Cannot wait for you to dive into those. And we got a packed show today, so we got to get right into it. Talking Miikka Murinen's scholarship offer, Jasper Johnson cutting down his list, a juice update, ACC Football Kickoff was yesterday, scholarship increases, Olympic Tar Heels, a baseball update. Holy smokes. Chock-a-block full. Let's hit it. On Wednesday, so 2 days ago, Coach Davis offered Miikka Murinen. This is a class of 2026 young man. This is now the sixth offer in the class of 26. He's 6'10", 6'11", 185, depending on where you look, as always, until you get him on a actual roster. There's no like specific, it's always like floating out there. But he's a big dude. Power forward. He's from Finland. Moved to Spain when he was about 15 years old to play there. Last year, though, came to the States, played at Sunrise Academy in Wichita, Kansas. That's one of these big like basketball factories. And then in June, just a month or so ago, announced that he was going to transfer to Compass Prep in Arizona. If that name sounds familiar to you, that's where Zayden High played and won a national championship a couple of years ago. So can't hate those connections. In terms of rankings, Murinen is the consensus 24th player in the class. 10th at On3, 44th at 247, 23rd at ESPN, and 39th at Rivals. Those are the big four sites. Got a bunch of other offers. Alabama, as always, it feels like us in Alabama always in on all the same dudes, always, of course. But also BYU, Cincinnati, Duke, Illinois, Kentucky, Michigan, Texas Tech, UCLA. It's got a whole bunch of suitors, of high-level suitors. And you know why? Because this dude can do everything. He is, I love watching him play basketball. He can shoot, and it's not like some like herky-jerky, like baby bird that doesn't know how to walk yet. You know how Hubert Davis always talks about Jalen Washington having the best shot he's seen for a big man? I think Miikka Murinen's might be better. I mean, it is so smooth. It is so pretty. It's repeatable. I love it. He can get to the basket. There's one play I saw in a highlight from Peach Jam. He's driving to the basket in traffic, tries to go behind his back. Like, didn't complete it. It actually went to a teammate and they still scored. But the fact that a 6'10" dude is trying to do that, believes he can in traffic, is insane to me. But he, from the perimeter, can get to the hoop. He's got turnaround fadeaways from the baseline. He can work in the paint. He can block shots. If you want to see like all of it, and like obviously you can see those clipped together highlights, but I would encourage you to go watch his highlights from the Peach Jam under 16 championship game from just, like last week. This is a game in which he had 21 points on 8 of 11 shooting, did a little bit of all of this. And I think it will just show you his all around game, like in one game, right? And I appreciate seeing that more than like, oh, he did this one thing in this one game one time, that kind of highlight package. Just go watch this game. And if you're not impressed, then we're watching different basketball. Speaking of Peach Jam, let's talk about that some, because my man Murinen absolutely showed out at this event. Again, as I said, he played in the Peach Jam E16, which is the under 16 event. Under 17 is like the high level because that's all the upcoming senior class. And so for the U16s, he was the 7th leading scorer at 17.8 points a game. Had a scary fall in what I think it was maybe the quarterfinals or the round right before. I can't remember, but it was like, but he was back to play the next day. And I'm just going to tell you, had an absolutely ridiculous tournament. Let me give you these numbers. 61.8% from the field. That's 42 of 68 he shot. Exactly 50% from 3 on 14 of 28 shooting. So, I mean, that's only in 6 games. That's a pretty good sample size there. In 6 games, it's a little more than 4 attempts a game. 90% at the free throw line, 9 of 10 there. 4 rebounds a game. I already said 17.8 points, 1.33 blocks. And by the way, all of that average is in just 22 minutes a game. It's so efficient. And I mentioned his championship game performance, which is really good against CP3. 21 points, 8 of 11 from the field, 4 of 7 from 3. 1 of 1 at the free throw line, 3 rebounds, 2 blocks, a steal, and 0 turnovers in 22 minutes. I mean, that's unreal. Also, that was against CP3, which is guys like Kendre Harrison, Coleman Clore, who also could be Tar Heels. So let's just get these guys to be teammates instead of competing against each other. So that was an impressive game, undoubtedly. But the game was this game he had against the Florida Rebels earlier in the tournament. 33 points on 13 of 23 shooting, 7 of 10 from 3. Reminder, this is a 6'10", 6'11" basketball player. 6 rebounds, 4 blocks, 0 turnovers in 31 minutes. I mean, what are we talking about? This dude is absolutely insane. Like I said in the cold open, I think he was cooked up in a lab for Hubert Davis, a stretch 4 that can literally do just about anything you need. I mean, can you imagine if Carolina had him right now to go with this backcourt? What are we talking about? So anyway, here's the other big thing that I haven't said yet. The big connection with Carolina and Miikka Murinen is this. His mom is Jenny Laxinen. If you remember that name, she played at Carolina under Coach Sylvia Hatchell from 2001 to 2003. So got to cash in on that. Although, as we all probably remember, that didn't help with Jaren Stevenson, whose mom also played at Carolina. So let's not screw this one up. Let's bring it home this time. Keep it in the legacy. Keep it in the family. Let's make Miikka Murinen a Tar Heel, right? Like somebody's got to start a campaign. I want this dude a ton. All right, let's a couple other recruiting updates before we move along. Jasper Johnson, who plays down at Link Academy, although he is going somewhere else this year, right? If I'm remembering correctly, but played with James Brown last year. That's where Elliot Cadeau had been. He cut down his list to his final 5 schools, and those are North Carolina makes the cut. Let's go. Along with Alabama, again, there we go. Kentucky, Arkansas, and Louisville. All of those make sense. A lot of people have been saying, a lot of recruiting analysts, that it seems like it will either be Alabama or Carolina, which is really interesting because he's from the Lexington area and shows up like he was at Kentucky's TBT game earlier this week. But despite that, it doesn't sound like Kentucky's necessarily the front runners. I mean, you can't count them out. And then it makes sense why then Arkansas would be in the list because of the Coach Cal connection, and why Louisville would be in the list because it's just an hour west of Lexington. So all of these schools make sense. Again, I want Murinen, Jasper Johnson, man. Let's absolutely land him. And then speaking of Kentucky, an update on Julius Halaifonua, the Kiwi, the New Zealand young man who was reclassed to 2024. Carolina is trying to pursue this from all the intel we're hearing, chiefly from inside Carolina, from Sherelle McMillan, who always does such a great job. One of Kentucky's writers, beat writers that follows them from KSR, has written that Kentucky is no longer expected to be in the running for Juice, which is good news. However, even though Kentucky's out of the mix, it's now sounding like this might come down to Carolina and Georgetown. And I know on the surface that might seem like, well, yeah, we're going to win that recruiting battle every day. there's a couple things though. In this day and age, we've got to remember that it's really just like, I just might go here for 1 year because it's what seems like the best for this year. So if Juice looks at Georgetown and thinks there's better playing time available for him this year, better development, which I don't think there would be, and I think there's plenty playing time at Carolina. But if he thinks that Georgetown would be a better landing spot for this year, that's part of the thing. It's like, I'm just committing for this year and then I could go wherever, right? But here's the other thing. Apparently, Georgetown is in the process of trying to hire one of the guys from the NBA Academy where, I don't know if it's directly with where Juice plays in New Zealand or where, but one of the handlers from NBA Academy. And we see people do this a lot, trying to land a recruit, whether it's like hiring a family member to the staff or an AAU coach or a high school coach in an effort to try and land a recruit or a player. This is not a unique or a foreign thing. It always feels a bit shady and like, hey, we couldn't land him of our own volition, so we're going to try to, get the warm, fuzzy family feels and draw on him that way. That's just cheap to me. But look, it's going to be what it's going to be. And I think that's where it's at. So we'll see what happens and how this plays out. All right, the Tar Heels football team was at ACC Kickoff on Thursday, plus an update on scholarships. Are we getting some more? We'll talk about that in just a second. Right after I tell you about eBay Motors, passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks, from exhaust kits to LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Why? Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Thanks for joining us today on Locked On Tar Heels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. A reminder that ACC Kickoff for football has been going on this week in Charlotte, different teams on different days, and Carolina was there on Thursday. You can go read all the various quotes and talking points, Coach Brown's interviews, Mac Johnson, all sorts of other stuff. You can see and find all that. It's just always interesting to me. Just pull out a tidbit or two here or there. But you can go unpack everything you want. Hear more. I thought Max Johnson's comments and Connor's about kind of the position battle between the two of them was really interesting, and how they're leaning into that and looking forward to it. I was encouraged by Mac Brown's comments just about, look, yes, Sam Howell is no longer here. Drake May is no longer here. But we believe, through no fault of their own, that we can be a better football team this year because we're continuing to build and grow and get better. We think the defense will be better. We think the offensive line will be better. And so don't just focus in on Drake is gone. That's easy for me to do. I got a hand up. I got to admit that, because I feel like without Drake these past years, Carolina loses a lot more games than they did end up winning. However, if the sum of the parts this year is more collectively better, then you can, as a team, be better. And let's be honest, Carolina's schedule is not the most difficult football schedule I've ever seen in my entire life. It's not going to be easy, but I'm cautiously optimistic. Man, that's guaranteed to let me down, because yikes. But my favorite thing that happened on Thursday was this quote from Mac Brown, who's usually, very congenial, laid back, really, just pat buddies on the back, good old boy. We got a bit spicy with this quote. I want to share it with you. Quote, "Every coach that recruits against us says I'm going to quit. And 6 of them have been fired and 6 of them have been fired that said that already. So they ought to be worried about themselves." End quote. My football coach is getting after it, and I love it. Coach Mac Brown, well done, sir. Very, very, very good. Now, as a reminder, the players that were there, Max Johnson, Conner Harrell, Kaimon Rucker, Powell, Echols, Omarion Hampton. But J.J. Jones, receiver, was actually also there kind of as a roaming reporter. It was funny. He got in on Max Johnson's interview, asked a question. He went to Grayson McCall, NC State's quarterback, to his little breakout table and asked him a question about the Carolina-NC State rivalry. I thought it was really neat that he's doing that. He looked fire in his blue suit. Was really cool. That was a funny moment with Max Johnson. And in fact, J.J. Jones has a message for the Locked On Tar Heels community. Check this out.
So, JJ, what do you have to say to the Locked On Tar Heels fan community?
I just want to say, make sure you watch us this season. I want to say, go Heels. Thank you guys for all the support you have. And thank you guys for listening to this amazing podcast. I endorse it every step of the way. And again, go Heels.
Big thanks to J.J. Jones. Big thanks to friend of the show, Emily Von Pocky, for helping get that from J.J. on Thursday. Great stuff. Thank you, Emily. Really appreciate you. Nothing yet on the preseason voting. That always happens during this week. So we get media poll where Carolina will slot in. We'll get all the preseason, all ACC stuff. That'll come through. As of Thursday night when I'm recording this, it hasn't yet, but I assume that it will today, sometime Friday, as you're listening to or watching this show. So stay tuned for that. Let's move from ACC kickoff to a bigger question or bigger conversation about scholarships. You might have seen this, you might have not, but on Wednesday, Ross Dellenger from Yahoo reported that it sounds like we are going to be getting additional scholarships kind of across the board in NCAA sports. Here's a quote from the first paragraph of his article. Quote, during a meeting Tuesday, Power Conference commissioners finalized a new roster size limits that paved the way for athletic departments to distribute millions of dollars in new scholarships to athletes in, most notably, football, baseball, and softball. Conference officials with knowledge of the figures spoke to Yahoo Sports under condition of anonymity. Shh, don't give their names away, end quote. And so this is really interesting to me. I want to focus on basketball here in just a second because that's the one that's most interesting to me. But for several of these sports, man, this is a big deal. Football is going to gain 20 scholarships, up to 105 total. Baseball, this is the biggest one to me. The number of scholarships that baseball teams get is laughably, woefully low for what it should be. It's going to be bumped to 34 scholarships. That's up 22.3 scholarships. Softball is going up 13 to a total of 25, and volleyball up 6 to a total of 18. Now, this all hasn't been formally announced and certified and everything, but it sounds like from Dellenger's reporting that it will be today at some point on Friday, and then we'll know more specifics. But this is all happening as part of all these payouts that are going to have to start happening as part of some of these lawsuits. So just keep your eyes up and out for official reporting. Now, with the basketball side of it, it's really interesting to me. Men's basketball is going to go from 13 scholarships, which it is right now, up to 15 scholarships. So schools will have 15 total scholarships to work with. This obviously, and this will not go into effect for this academic year. The expectation is 25-26. But here's what's weird to me about the basketball side of it. This is coming at a time when coaches are using fewer scholarships, not asking for more. Right now, as we record this, Carolina has used 11 of their 13 available scholarships. And so instead of leaving 2 on the table, they'd be leaving 4 on the table. So in its current iteration, as we see stuff, it's kind of a nothing burger to me in terms of college basketball, because it's like, oh, we don't want them. But where I think they could be useful and utilized is maybe there's some different ways to think about this. For example, we see schools who aren't using all their scholarships sometimes redshirting a player to be ready to go for the next year, kind of stocking them away, letting them practice with the team. Not like a medical redshirt, not anything of that nature, but just like Virginia has done this some. Gonzaga, that's a great example. Gonzaga is doing it this year with a young man named Braden Smith, not Purdue's point guard. There's actually another Braden Smith in college basketball who's going to Gonzaga this year, but he's redshirting because Gonzaga already has a pretty full roster, including their starting point guard, Mr. Nembhard, which is what Smith plays. And so he could slide into that role next year. And so if you've got these scholarships and you've got some young men who wouldn't mind sitting for a year, that's a great way to stash them away. It's almost like anybody play fantasy football where you've got like an injured reserve spot where you can just keep a guy handy till you're ready to use him. It's kind of like that. You could use it that way. Or another thing is I think this could be great because you could give scholarships to potentially all of your walk-ons. Like if you have 15 total players on your roster, let's say Hubert Davis continues to want to use just like 11 scholarships, and then you got 4 walk-ons, they can all get a scholarship. And to me, what a neat way to reward these guys for everything they put in for these programs, all the time, effort, energy, getting beat up and banged on at practice, right? And so I think that would be neat. Here's one other wrinkle to this thing, though. Typically, so far, in sports like football and basketball, you had to give full scholarships. If Hubert Davis laughably was giving me a scholarship for basketball, which he should not do, it would have to be full. It could not be partial like in baseball, for example. But now, let me read you another quote from Dellenger's reporting. Quote, another key change to the scholarship structure. All sports will be considered, quote, equivalency sports, end quote, meaning partial scholarships can be distributed to players. Football, basketball, and other sports are currently considered head count sports, which require every player on scholarship to receive a full grant. So this means Mac Brown now could start passing out partial scholarships. Hubert Davis, if he wanted to give some level of scholarship money to every walk-on, could give partial scholarships to those guys. And so I think we'll still, for the guys that you think of as scholarship level players, there's enough to go around like in basketball that we'll see full scholarships. But to be able to reward walk-ons in some way, I think is a big win. So we'll keep our eyes open for more information, more specifics and details on this. I'll unpack it with you as we learn more. Moving ahead, it's Friday, and that means the opening ceremonies are tonight. There's already some action going on, like women's soccer won on Thursday already. And so we'll look at that. All the Olympic Tar Heels, I believe there are 14 of them, unless that number changes. And I want to let you know a few baseball tidbits. We'll get to all of that to wrap up today's show. Right after I tell you about FanDuel. I love sports so much, and I never want them to stop. But in the dog days of summer, like right now, the sports just aren't sports, and then we get fewer games. The good news, though, is that FanDuel lets you keep the sports going whenever you want. All you got to do, open the app and dream up bets anytime you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. We just talked about how the Olympic opening ceremonies are tonight. This is a fun one. Olympic athlete specials. For example, Katie Ledecky, one of the best swimmers of all time. Two different odds for her specifically. Number one, plus 600 that she sets a world record in an individual event at these Olympics. Plus 500 that Katie would win a total of 3 golds in individual events. How about Noah Lyles, the track star? 3 different odds for him. Plus 380 to set a world record in either the 1 or 200 meter dash. Plus 340 to win gold in the 100 meter, 200 meter, and 4x100 meter relay. All 3 to get that one right. Or plus 200 for Lyles to win gold in the 100 and 200 meter dash. Those are super fun. And if you want to get in on, visit FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. I know a lot of you are like me and you are geeked out right now because you love the Olympics. Like tonight, Friday, we're hosting like an Olympics opening ceremony party at our house. I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. So it's an appropriate time to talk about the Tar Heel Olympians. From a release from UNC, there are 14 Tar Heels right now. You know how, and we say right now, it's at least 14 Tar Heels, whatever language you want to use, because sometimes it fluctuates or people get disqualified or alternates have to come in, whatever. But right now, it's 14 Tar Heels. And cool, 5 of them are current student athletes or starting this fall. Let me give you the list. Crystal Dunn, her 3rd Olympics for U.S. women's soccer, really cool. Katie Bowen, her third Olympics for New Zealand women's soccer. Hey, Katie Bowen, go talk to Juice and make your countrymen be a Tar Heel. We've already talked about this one recently because of what she did to repeat as national champion. In fact, we're going to be talking about her more next week. But Aranza Vázquez Montaño is part of the Mexican diving team. This is her second Olympics. She'll be competing again in the 3-meter springboard, where she got 6th place at Tokyo. So very good hope that Aranza can keep going. And the rest of this list are all first-time Olympians, the final 11. Another U.S. women's soccer player, Emily Fox, who competed in the World Cup for U.S., but now makes her Olympic debut. Got a couple swimmers, 2 Israeli swimmers who are actually going to be Tar Heel freshmen this fall for Carolina. Martin Kartavi is part of the Israeli swim team. It's his first Olympics. He's swimming in the 50 free, as is his countryman, Adam Marana, who, again, an Israeli swimmer coming to Carolina this fall. But he's doing the 100 back rather than the 50 free. Patrick Hussey is part of the Canadian swimming contingent, first Olympics 50 free. And then Mia Fury is part of the Zambia swim team, her first Olympics 50 free as well. We got all these 50 free sprint swimmers. Love that. A couple field hockey players, both first Olympics, Ashley Hoffman and Meredith Shoulder, part of U.S. field hockey. Good luck, ladies. Naya Tapper, it's her first Olympics, U.S. women's rugby team. We know Rinky Hijikata, an Australian tennis player. It will be his first Olympics. He's had a big year for Rinky. Love to see him keep it going here. Ethan Ramos will compete for Puerto Rico in wrestling. And then rounding it out, we have a Canadian rower, Kristen. I've been working on pronouncing her last name, Sire-Macheski. I hope I'm pronouncing Kristen's last name correctly. And then we also have an alternate for the U.S. field hockey team. That's Cassie Sumfest. So if Cassie gets in, that would be the 15th Tar Heel. So really, really neat stuff. Congrats to all the Tar Heel Olympic athletes. Man, go get it at these Olympics. Cannot wait to watch you and cheer for you. A couple of updates for the Diamond Heels. The Major League Baseball draft was early last week around the time of the All-Star game and the Home Run Derby. And some news we got earlier this week on Wednesday is that Dalton Pence, unfortunately won't be back for the Tar Heels. Because the thing is, if you're drafted, sometimes these baseball players won't actually sign and decide to come back to college. Like if they don't like where they were signed, where they were drafted, if it's too far down, they might come back. But Dalton Pence decided to sign with the Rangers. The lefty was picked in the 11th round, $350,000 signing bonus. And so it's one of those things where it's like, man, that's great for Dalton. I hate it for us, but I'm so excited for him to begin his professional career. Go be great, my man. But that means somebody else is going to have to come out of this Carolina bullpen and be a dude. Although Coach Forbes had talked about Dalton being a starter next year. So we're going to have to see how that all materializes and what it looks like. And then the other baseball thing is that Baseball America came out with their way too early top 25. And despite losing Dalton Pence and Vance Honeycutt and Casey Cook and Shea Sprague and others, Carolina is picked number 12 in their way too early rankings in a list that was released on Wednesday. So that's great news for the Tar Heels. Obviously, you got to go do it. So we'll see how all the pieces start to come together. But there is that great young core, hopefully getting some pitching back from injury, and we'll see what happens. All right, you guys, have a great weekend. I hope you enjoy the kickoff of the Olympics. I'm going to be glued to the TV. I hope that you will as well. Again, I'm taking off on vacation for next week and the beginning of the week after, but there are shows already locked and loaded for you for all of those days because I don't want you to miss a single one of them. I'm trying to be here for you, even when I'm not actually here for you. If you're not subscribed to the show on audio and video, please do so. It's very easy to do. Helps you make sure that you don't miss a second. If you haven't subscribed to the Locked On Tar Heels Discord community, we would love to have you come be a part of that. It's a free thing to join. The link for it's in the show notes. Come for the Tar Heels, stay for the community. It's a great place to be. Want to remind you that it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll be back together on Monday. But until then, peace.